Hi, I'm Shawk23, and it's been over a year since I started this podcast. So, in this special episode, I'll be going over my entire experience of this podcast, what I've learned, and I'll also give you tips and tricks on how to start if you have an idea for a podcast or you're thinking of starting one. So, stay tuned for that. Hi, I'm Shawk23, and this is the Shawk23 Podcast. This is the podcast by creatives for creatives, where we share our knowledge and experience about the creative industries to help you out there, our fellow creatives, and those who are aspiring to come and join us in the creative industry. Sorry, it has been a while since I've done a podcast because we've been very, very busy. So first of all, I'd like to apologize to all my supporters out there, to all my subscribers, to all my listeners, and to other people for the long hiatus. My team has been busy. I have been busy. Our guests have been busy. And so we've been trying very best to coordinate, but unfortunately we haven't been able to be consistent and get everything through. But we're back again, and we're here for another year and another season of the Shawk23 Podcast. So thank you so much for tuning in and for joining me. Now, as I stated before in the intro, it's been over a year since I released the first episode of the Shawk23 Podcast. The first episode came out on the 19th of September 2023. And since then, we've only managed to put out at least 13th episode. By the time this episode comes out, would have been 13 episodes. And it has been a wild ride. I've learned so much from this experience and from this podcast. And it's been just a journey of growth and just something that was really challenging to me. I didn't expect to come to this point or to be in this situation, or to have a podcast and to be someone who does this kind of content. But in this episode, I really want to talk about the experience that I've had and the things that I've learned about this podcast. I really want to talk about how this podcast started. There have been a lot of people who have been asking me like how I started this podcast, what does it take to run a podcast, and all kinds of questions. So in this episode, I want to answer some of those questions. So if you're out there and you have an idea for a podcast, or you have this dream or this desire to start one, but you don't know what to start or where to begin, then this episode is definitely for you. So to start, we have to ask the question, why on earth did I start this podcast? Why do a podcast? And what exactly is a podcast? A podcast is basically just a digital audio file that you can download and you can stream on any platform, mainly Spotify or Apple Podcast, and you can listen to it at any time. It's kind of like a radio show that you can listen to whenever you want to. But the modern day today, there's always video podcasts as well. They come in a video version, and that's the kind of podcast that we have here at the Shawk23 Podcast. Why I did this is mainly because first of all, I love podcasts. I've always enjoyed podcasts. I've always listened to podcasts, and I learned so much from podcasts. And my favorite podcast is the Future Podcast by Chris Do. And this podcast is a mirror of that podcast, where in his podcast, Chris Do, he meets with other creatives and other professionals in the creative industry, not only just in the creative, but also branding, marketing. He also sits down with certain CEOs, and they talk not about design, but they talk about the business of design. They talk about the value that creatives hold to organizations and what an important part they play in helping the success and the development and the growth of a company. It's not just about creating things. It's just not about creating stunning visuals or creating logos. There's great value in the things that we as creatives create. And I remember that when I started listening to that kind of those kind of podcasts and that kind of basically conversations, it really stood in my mind the fact that a lot of us creatives, we think that we're just people who do what the client asks. We see ourselves as people who basically kind of take orders, for lack of a better word. The client wants something, we're just like, okay, what do you want? But listening to someone like Chris Do and people similar to him, I've realized that we as creators, we offer much more than just creative services. What we create are actual solutions to the problems that businesses and companies have. We also create assets to their brand, to their marketing, that these companies and these brands can leverage to increase their profits and to increase their reach, increase their success and their prosperity. So we're more than just creatives with people who know how to put beautiful things together. We play a huge part in the success of the industry, of the global industry. The problem is that we don't know. And in this day and age, there are a lot of creatives coming up. There are a lot of freelancers now, and there are people who are leaving, university or even schools and pursuing this kind of career path, the entrepreneurial path that's kind of crazy and kind of scary, to be honest, and it's extremely hard. And I remember I started my business in 2019, and when I started, I did not have a plan. I did not know what to expect. For those of you who heard, my very first episode was the story about how I became Shawk23 and I started this business. You can listen to that full episode. I'll leave the link here. And for you to just listen to my story. Well, basically, I kind of resigned, just to refresh. I resigned from my job, and then I took a gap year just to explore, because I was extremely burnt out. I was exhausted. I just wanted to rest and create again. I was a graphic designer for TV1, for a TV company, a TV broadcast production company, and that was a fun job, but it got really exhausting. I got extremely burnt out, and I just wanted to take a break, because it gets exhausting when the thing that you love to do the most, which is create, becomes a job, which is something that you have to stress and be pressured over in order to make money so that you can provide for yourself and for the people that rely on you. So it was I got really exhausted, and then I wanted to take a break. And while I was taking a break and just exploring the art side of myself and my creativity, again, posting art on social media, that kind of led into a business and led me down into starting my own business as a freelancer and starting to grow. And when I started, I did not have anybody to really talk to look up to, especially within the country of Papua New Guinea. I did not have anyone to sit down, mentor me, and give me a roadmap of what I was going to expect or how to even put everything together. And I realized over the past few years that most of the time I've had to learn how to build and to run the business on myself. I had to, do the research, do the work, read the books, do the courses, watch the videos, do all kinds of things in order for me just to survive as a business and as a creative. I've done a lot of the learning on my own. And I realized that a lot of my peers in the creative industry as well, other freelancers, we're all the same. We're learning on our own. There's not proper like a roadmap for us. Everybody is just doing it and just figuring it out on their own. And that's mainly why I did the podcast. My goal was to create a place where all of us creatives in PNG, and hopefully it extends out into the Pacific as well, is that this podcast becomes a kind of a resource. So if you're a fellow freelancer, if you're a fellow creative, and you're kind of lost, or you kind of don't know what to expect along this journey, then these discussions and that these podcasts will act as kind of like a guiding light, hopefully, or a resource just to help you to know that you're not alone in your journey, that what you may be doubting yourself, or the struggles or the low points that you feel and that you're going through along that journey, that you would feel at least that you'll understand that there are other people who feel what you feel, who have been through what you've been through, and there's so many other people who have overcome as well, especially in the day of social media where everybody is posting their successes, they highlight reels, they're traveling all over the places, they're posting all this great content, great pictures. And sometimes if you're starting out or you've been doing it for a couple of years and you're not seeing, any progress, it's easy to feel defeated and easy to feel like a failure, or that you're struggling and you want to give up. But in this podcast and this podcast going forward, my goal has always been to provide just that voice of reassurance that you are on the right path, that the struggles that you are facing and the hardships and the low points, that's all part of the process and that's all part of the journey. Because you're not seeing the wins now doesn't mean that you will never see the wins later. Everything is about growing, everything is about building you, and everything is shaping you to become the person you need to be to succeed in the future, grow, and beyond. That's basically why this podcast exists, why I'm doing it, and where I think it will go forward and beyond. We'll see. Right now I'm just having fun and just exploring whatever comes next. How this podcast started. How did the podcast start? The podcast started really, in order for us to understand how the podcast started, we have to go back. Back in 2020, I did a series on Instagram where every single month I would interview an artist, a digital artist. I was big on digital artists back then. I was posting all kinds of my drawings and my traditional inspired characters. And then I realized there were so many other digital artists that were coming on board. And the thing was that my platform, my Instagram, my Facebook was growing at a really, really big rate. And I was getting a lot of good gigs from that. And I really wanted to help the other artists, especially the digital artists who are very talented, just to share my platform and just to share the spotlight that was on me so that they too could have some of the attention that I was getting. So in 2020, I started this artist feature that came out on the 23rd of every month because branding, and it was called Spotlight on the 23rd. And every 23rd, every month I would reach out to a digital artist, I would send them a couple of questions, and then they would send me back the answer, and then I would publish them on my page. And I did that for almost, I think, 2 years. The thing that I found interesting was that when I asked the questions that I asked the artists, their answers were very deep and very insightful. These are just not normal people. These are deep thinkers. And what I realized was that instead of people reading it, wouldn't it be nice if I could sit in a room with these artists and talk and actually let them share their insights and what was going through their mind? And that kind of was where the idea for a podcast came from. It's just from that spotlight, I thought to myself, this would make a really good podcast if I could get artists, and not only artists, but also other creatives, because I was already building friendships with photographers and videographers and so many people. The community was growing and we were all mingling. And it just started off as a really good idea for us to just sit down and have a discussion and have those discussions recorded. Wouldn't that be a really good content for not just for ourselves? Yeah, I thought that it would be really good content, not just for ourselves, but for everybody else. And maybe those people who are coming after us, who are looking for guidance and maybe mentorship, this could actually be a resource for that. So that was it. And when I had that idea, I did not even pursue it. This podcast, honestly, literally kind of fell into my hands. It kind of just flowed to me. It wasn't something that I planned for. It wasn't something that I pursued. When the idea hit me, it was just an idea. I was like, okay, this is just an idea. It'll be really cool. I don't even know if it'll work or not, but I really didn't pay any attention to it. I just thought about it, say it's a good idea, and then I let it go. Fast forward to 2023, and then I'm busy running my business, dealing with clients, and then suddenly I get a message via Facebook from my now sponsor, Smart Hills Corporate Solutions. And the first time they messaged me on Facebook, I actually thought they were a fake company. You know how, for those of you who are on Instagram, especially on Instagram, or there comes a time where they're just going to be these brand companies that shoot you a message in your DMs on Instagram, asking you to be their brand ambassador, or asking you to, subscribe to the page and they'll follow you and things like that. I thought that this company, Smart Hills, was one of those companies. So I kind of let that message sit in my inbox for almost 2 weeks. And then this crazy thought came to me, and then I decided to just check them out. And when I found out that they were actually based in Port Moresby, and they were a legit company. I was like, oh, okay, these guys must be like a really serious company, and maybe there's something in it for me. Now, the week that I came for the meeting, I met with the boss of Smart Hill. First of all, we have to understand my circumstance at the time. So in November of 2022, I used to have an iMac, a really big 27-inch iMac. That iMac went bye-bye. It just went, I think this power source must have blown or something, and it went off and it could not come back on ever again. So I had to resort to using my laptop that was 10 years old. That was the laptop that I bought way back in 2013, and that thing was outdated. That thing was just old and very slow, and it was just a mountain trying to get work. Just imagine trying to run After Effects and Premiere Pro and Adobe Illustrator and all the software that really need a lot of resources to work on a machine that is 10 years old. So that was my situation. I remember that week, my prayer that week was like, God, please, I need a new laptop because this is not working. Anyway, so I went to the meeting, and the meeting said that the message was that they wanted to see if I could work on their branding, but they also wanted to see how they could sponsor me. That was the part that I thought that it was fake, because I didn't think it was a real thing. So I just came with an open mind to the meeting with Smart Hills, and I sat down with the boss, Keith, and we had a discussion. And that meeting turned out to be a 2-hour meeting. What was supposed to be a 30-minute meeting turned into a 2-hour meeting where both of us were just brainstorming ideas on how to create content, and how Smart Hills was trying to support me create content that would help other creatives. I have to give them credit because they really saw a lot of potential. They still do see a lot of potential in me, and really were invested in what I had to bring. Even at the time where I did not really see the potential in myself and really thought that I was worth investing in, but they were the ones who wanted to invest in me. Anyway, the meeting went like this. I came to the head office, I sat down, I met with Keith, and then we started talking about branding and then how I could help them with their branding. And then suddenly the conversation pivoted to sponsorship, and they were like, do you do courses? Do you do workshops? Do you do any kind of thing? Are you interested in doing courses like this? Are you interested in doing like having an event or a talk where, you know, how can you contribute? How can we, basically they were trying to say, how can we help you contribute to the community? Because Smart Hills Corporate Solutions are very passionate about supporting creatives and the creative industry. And my experience with them has always been one of support and encouragement. They've always been looking for ways to support me and other creatives. So during the conversation where we're brainstorming ideas, the idea for the podcast, I just pitched it. I sat down and I just told Keith, from the boss of Smart Hills, I just told him, I've always had the idea for a podcast. And then he was intrigued. And so we discussed like, yeah, it would be a podcast. It would be by creatives, for creatives. You know, we'll just talk about the industry and our experiences and what's it been like. And the target audience would be other creatives and those who would be interested in coming and pursuing a creative career. And bro just took over the conversation, and the next minute he's asking me like what I needed, what equipment I needed, whether I needed a laptop, what kind of software I needed. And that was the birth of the podcast. I left that meeting, and this is the crazy part, is that I left that meeting with an agreement, and I walked out of the building with a laptop, a brand new laptop that I still use today, and it's courtesy of Smart Hills Corporate Solutions. Speaking of Smart Hills Corporate Solutions, the proud sponsor of the Shawk23 Podcast, here's a message from them. The Shawk23 Podcast is proudly sponsored by Smart Hills Corporate Solutions. Smart Hills Corporate Solutions provide IT solutions for corporate businesses and creatives like myself. They provide a wide range of products and services and are certified resellers of software such as Microsoft Office, Adobe Creative Cloud, Wondershare, and more. To find out more, please visit their website on www.smarthills.com.pg. Now back to the show. And we're back. And so that's basically the story of the meeting that landed me this podcast. After that, he asked me for a quote of what I needed. So I reached out to my friends who did podcasts. I reached out mainly to MK Yobo of the Nogat Lesman podcast because I was a co-host of that podcast for a while. And so I kind of knew that he was the right person to reach out to. He gave me a list of what I needed, and then I sent it to my sponsor, and then they basically got everything for me, all the audio equipment, and just gave me the freedom basically to run and to produce this podcast. So like I said, it wasn't something that I really pursued or something that I really wanted to do. It's just something that kind of just aligned with who I am and what the ideas that I had at the time. And it was really easy for me because I had 4 years experience working with TV1. As a graphic designer, we work closely with producers, and also we share the same building with the news team. So I kind of studied how the producers used to put together interviews, how they used to prepare for their show. So I kind of understood the structure of what a show required and the kind of work and effort that was required to be put into a podcast. I also was really, really inspired by Godfrey Kaptigal, the Anxious Coconut podcast. I think he has to be the first PNG podcaster. As far as I'm concerned, I think he's the one who started it all. So shout out to you, Godfrey, the Podfather. I think you're the one that really influenced and inspired me to believe that we Papua New Guineans can start a podcast. Another podcaster that I kind of followed was the NewNet podcast, David and his team at NewNet, and hosted by Dan. I've been on that podcast twice, so I kind of understood how the structure and the flow of it. And then, of course, the Nogat Lesman podcast, which I was a co-host of for a couple of episodes, and then my schedule just could not allow me to continue. So I kind of had the experience in the bag. So planning and putting all the content together and just building a structure for a podcast was just something that was already within my wheelhouse. So it wasn't something outside of my comfort zone. But what was out of my comfort zone was the fact that I've had to put myself on camera, which is something that I really don't enjoy. I am predominantly an introvert. And what that means is that I don't like to be in the spotlight. I'd rather be behind the scenes than in front of it. I really don't like the light shining on me. I'd rather it be shown on my work. But as I've grown as a business person and as a creative, I've realized that I have to constantly step out of my comfort zone of being introverted and to being more extroverted, to being more outgoing, learning to talk to people, learning to interact with people. And the interview format was kind of my little hack to strengthen my confidence and to strengthen that part of me that wanted to be more extroverted and less introverted, because it was a skill that I needed to develop because of what I do and where just the kind of life that I'm living. I'm struggling to find the words, but that was basically it. And that's the crazy story of how the Shawk23 podcast kind of started and it came to be. And the experience so far has been really, really, really good, but also challenging as well, because not only this is something that we do on the side. This is not something that's the main thing that we did. If we did it was the main thing, then definitely the production would be a little higher and, would get more opposites. We'll get more episodes out frequently. But it's been just the challenging part of it has been just managing everything, managing guests, and then managing the team, because I work in collaboration with other creatives, other videographers, and people who volunteer. Everybody's volunteering just to help to put together all of these things, and then learning to edit again, and then learning to create templates and understand how to host the podcast and what platform to get on, what platforms to do, what softwares to use, and just everything. Just the planning side has been one interesting experience, and I'm kind of glad I'm doing it because I'm just learning so much. And I really hope that the efforts that we've been putting into each and every episode has been appreciated by you guys. And based on the comments, it has. But if you think we can do better, then definitely we will try to do better. So what I use for the podcast, my podcast there are various things that I use, and I'm just going to list them down. For our audio equipment, we use the Rode Podcaster, which is the sound mixing tool that we use. We use the Rode Pod mics, which work really well with the sound mixer, the Rode Podcaster. We also have these wireless mics as well. And all of that's where the audio comes from. And I really encourage you to invest in a podcaster, because the thing is that it just manages everything, and you also have the ability to separate the audio, so it makes editing really, really easier, and the presets, the sound is just crisp. It's just really, really good. Unfortunately, we're not using it right now, but go back to the episodes where we use the pod mics, the professional microphones. They sound really, really good. For video footage, I have a Canon 90D. That's the camera that we're using right now because it's a single shot episode. That's the main camera that we use. But I collaborate with other videographers and even photographers, and they bring their own camera. So when we have a guest, then we use the 90D, and then the people that I partner with, we use their camera as well. Those are the cameras that we use. Some use another Canon, some use a Sony. Cheyenne Abel has a cinematic camera, and we used that once, and I don't know, it was a bit too much for a podcast, but it was kind of good to have a camera that was filmmaker quality to be used to shoot an episode. So that was an experience. Thanks, Cheyenne. That was a crazy day. We like to keep the podcast very, very simple. I think the problem is that when you think too big and act too big, you won't be able to maintain it. I remember the first episode, the boys, the team just went crazy. They wanted to bring studio lights and gel lights that made everything really colorful and everything. And I just told them guys, that's all cool, but can we maintain it? Are you able to bring those equipment? And are we able to do the same setup every single episode? And they had to pause and stop, and we had to resort to a very simple setup because, again, consistency is the key. When you're doing a podcast like this where you need to regularly put out, it has to be consistent, and the simpler you make it, the easier it is to maintain. Plus, we being the creatives and the business people that we are, we're so busy as well. So even though we're ambitious and we want to do things crazy, we have to come back down to earth and be realistic and do things in a way that's very simple for us to follow. The platforms that we use, I use Spotify for podcasters to host my podcast. So we record the video and the audio version at the same time, but separately. And then when we edit, I edit the video, and then I export the audio and I upload that to Spotify for podcasters. And then I upload the video straight to YouTube. Anyways, but Spotify for podcasters is a great platform. It's absolutely free. You don't even need a Spotify subscription for you to use it. And it used to be another platform called Anchor FM. Spotify for podcasters is a one solution. It's a distributor. It's not just a host, but it's also a distributor. So when you upload your podcast or your episode onto that, there is an option for you to distribute it to other platforms. So you really don't have to do a lot of work. As long as you set up your distributions properly, you can upload it one episode and then it will be distributed to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Castbox, whatever podcast platform that you enjoy. It can automatically upload your episode with all the information in there. So it's a one-stop solution, and it's absolutely free. So if you want to start a podcast, sign up for Spotify for podcasts. It also has analytics and tracking, so you know exactly who's listening and which episode. So I can't believe that thing is actually free, but I'm very grateful that it is. For the video, of course, we upload here straight to YouTube, and then we do shorts, edit shorts, and then we put them on to all our social media on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. The software that I used a lot of software. I use the Adobe Creative Cloud. That's my main thing. I think every creative, that's our standard. We use that. So for editing, I use Premiere Pro. a little bit of editing in Audition as well. Just in sometimes the audio is not audioing, so you have to audio it in Audition. Premiere Pro is my tool, and it's really great. I also use a plugin called Autopod, and what that does is that it does the editing. It's an AI tool, it's an AI plugin. Unfortunately, it's a subscription service, so I do pay for it, but it makes editing so much faster. Like, as long as the audio and the video footage of each of your guests are separated and properly synced, do an automatic audit of that episode or of that cut within seconds. Like, once you align everything, sync everything, and you press the button, the episode is already edited and cut. And that just saves me a lot of time. So when I do guest interviews, the editing time is just cut in half. All I have to do is just watch it and just review it and then just make those minor adjustments. Definitely check out Autopod if you really need if you're someone who does a lot of interviewing and it's taking you a long time to edit all of that. It is costly, but it's definitely worth it, and I'm really happy I use that. For motion graphics, I use After Effects. I designed our intro in After Effects, the lower third, all of that. And in After Effects and Premiere Pro, they work really, really well together. So what you can do is you can design motion graphic templates in After Effects, export them into Premiere Pro, and there's drag and drop. It's just that easy. So everything is just really streamlined. Designs like the thumbnails and the covers, I do that in Photoshop and sometimes in Illustrator. And it's important that you do templates, because if you don't do templates, then you're gonna constantly keep recreating the wheel. That's a waste of time. And if you're someone who's as busy as me and my team, we don't have the luxury to spend a lot of time on things that they take a lot of time. Like, we have other priorities as well. So streamlining this process, creating templates, whatever it is, file systems, anything, it's really important. And if you don't have access to this software and you're looking for an alternative, for editing, I would recommend Filmora. That's a really good editing tool. Even you can use CapCut. If you're really good at CapCut, like on your phone, like that's another editing tool that you can use. It's a really good free tool. If you're looking for a free tool for sound mixing and sound editing, Audacity, that's a free tool that's really good as well. And if you don't have access to Photoshop or Illustrator, Canva is a really good tool that you can use. And plus, they're pre-made templates. So all you can do is just find those templates, keep those templates, and just constantly reuse them. And the importance of not only like streamlining and creating templates is not so that you can make the process easier and simple and easy to maintain, but it also creates consistency and brand consistency. Like, if you keep the same cover, the same look, all of that consistent, then you are training your audience to grow with you. They get used to you, they know what to expect, and they don't have a hard time trying to adjust to your content. Everything becomes a rhythm and it's easy to maintain. You really don't have to make things complicated. Keep them simple, because at the end of the day, it is not the tools, the camera, the audio, the microphones that you use. What matters and what is of value is the person, what your idea is, what your personality is, what your message is, what you want to say in the podcast, and who you want to reach. Whether it be for education or for entertainment, it really doesn't matter. That's the content is the valuable part, and how you push or how you communicate, the tools that you use to communicate that, it really doesn't matter. They can grow as you gain more experience, and as you build, you can continue to invest and grow and build and get better equipment along the way. As long as you start, you put yourself out there and you play the long game. I really didn't expect a lot of the positive feedback that has come my way. I remember that the first episode, I was really nervous. Like, if you go back and you listen to it, you can hear how nervous I am in my voice. And I've grown a lot of confidence since there. And I always get really good feedback about especially the side of the production. The production has been really, really good. And I'm so thankful for the team. Like, I couldn't do that without my team. I'm also very thankful to all the guests who have been here and who have contributed to the discussions. We've had some really great guests onto it, and the feedback has been really, really good. So thank you all for all your support. But but not everything has been positive. There has been some negative criticism, and there's been some harsh criticism that has also come my way. And that's normal. Like, you have to expect these things. There are no sunshine and rainbows whenever you put yourself out there. There is always going to be positive and there's always going to be negatives. And we cannot control what people say to us or how they say what they say to us. Like the criticism and all of that, it's not within our control. But what is within our control is how we respond to it, and whether we let that get to us and destroy us, or whether we take advantage of that and learn from it. So it's always a mixed bag, but all in all, I'm very grateful for both. Like, you can't live on sugar alone. Like, you need your vegetables, you need things that are bitter and sour, because it's good for you, and it's all part of the growth. And I remember there was one criticism that I had. I used to have this habit of interrupting my guests. And I could just, while they were talking, I would just get too excited, and I would always want to talk always wanted to bring my point across. And there were a couple of people who really pointed that out in the comments. And they were like, "Oh, Chan, stop interrupting. Like, you ruined the conversation. Like, just shut up and just let her talk, let them talk." And I could have gotten offended by that. I could have been like defensive. I really wanted to be defensive. But what I learned was that because some people know what they say, but they don't know how to say it. And I'm really grateful for those people who did criticize me that way, because it really exposed a weakness in how I interview people. And I really took that and I learned, and I'm very mindful now going forward when I'm interviewing with guests about interrupting them. I'm really trying to be more patient with my guests. So not all bad and harsh criticism is meant to destroy you or meant to bring you down. Some people really have something good to say. Sometimes they just don't know how to say it, and it's not their fault. We just have to learn to be better filters of criticism and not to run from it, to embrace it. There's a quote that I really love that says that if you don't want to be criticized, do nothing, say nothing, be nothing. And that's a really strong reminder that if you want to stand up for something or want to put out yourself out there, or even us creatives, we're constantly put our work out there, we're always going to be open to criticism. But that's part of the game that we play. And instead of trying to wish that those kind of things didn't exist, we can instead learn to deal with them and use them to our advantage, to learn, to grow, and to better themselves. So do not run away from criticism. Audience reach has been surprisingly good. I remember one of the criticisms that have come was like, can you please make pidgin versions, like talk pisin versions of the podcast? And as much as I would love to do that, first of all, that would take a lot of work, because we would have to translate every episode, and then we have to do the captions, and that's just a lot of time and energy. And we really don't, my team and I just don't have the capacity to deal with that. But another thing is that I really didn't want this podcast to be limited to Papua New Guinea. I really didn't want it. I know that there are other creatives out there, especially in the Pacific, who experience the same things that we're kind of like, culturally, we're very similar. We may have somewhat different like experiences, but our culture is kind of the same. It all ties together, and we relate very well to each other. And I really wanted this podcast to be accessible by everybody. I didn't want it to have that language barrier. So that's the whole reason why this podcast is always going to be in English, and it's going to be in a language that's easily accessible. That's just it. And it has paid off, because according to my Spotify, 51% of my audience is in Papua New Guinea, 22% is from Australia, 10% is from Fiji, 9% is from the United States, 6% is from New Zealand, 2% is from the Solomon Islands, less than 1% is from, almost 1% is from Philippines and Kiribati and Taiwan, Singapore, Japan, and then less than that is the United Kingdom, Germany, Belgium, and the Netherlands. So my strategy to make it more accessible to other people, I don't even know if these are other Papua New Guineans or who live overseas or other Pacific Islanders, but I'm very pleased and I'm very glad that we do have a reach that extends the borders of Papua New Guinea. And I really hope that we continue to build not just a local creative community, but have access and build a bridge towards the global creative community as well. It's going to create a lot of opportunities for us creatives, and hopefully for other, up and comers coming in. In terms of reach, it's been, it's just been very surprising. I really didn't expect a lot of the growth that we have seen. It hasn't been like a really big growth. A lot of it has been very small growth, but it's really taught me to be patient, and it's really taught me to just constantly try to be constant and consistent, and to just put out the best and not really worry about like the numbers or how you perform. Just refined. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. And I think the main takeaway, if I could wrap up now, and like the main takeaway that I've learned from this podcast, apart from stepping out of your comfort zone, is learning to redefine what success is. Because when I started this podcast, I was really focused on the numbers, and it's easy to focus on the numbers when you're a content creator. You really want the likes, and you really want the followers, and you really want to go viral as quickly and as many times as possible. You think that when you start, you're gonna just climb. And that's not the truth. And the interesting thing is that when you chase numbers, and the same is true for money as well. When you chase numbers or money or fame or like followers or like subscribers, all of that, the more you chase it, the more you'll kind of notice that the more they start to resist you, the further away they go. The more like detached you are, the more you really don't stop chasing it, really don't try to go after them. You somehow attract. If any content creator out there, or just any creative, don't chase the numbers. Just chase to be a better version of yourself, and chase to be a better creative, and work on your process, and work on your systems and your content and your presentation, things that are in your control, and be consistent with that, because it is that consistency that will be rewarded, and you'll see the fruit of your labor very, very soon. So I would just encourage everybody to stop paying attention to trying to get monetized, or stop trying to get as many followers as possible, and just focus on creating better content. Focus on the quality and not the quantity. And I'm pretty sure that you'll find the success and the prosperity that you are looking for. I think that's it. I think I've said all that I've needed to say. I think there's more, but it's kind of going everywhere right now. But I want to say thank you to everybody who's been a constant, support for the podcast over the year and going into the future. I really want to say thank you to our sponsors, thank you to the teams and everybody that I've collaborated with to put this podcast together. Thank you for all the positive feedback, even the negative feedback. And I thank you for the journey that I'm being on. And I'm learning so much, and I hope that you're learning on too. And I hope that going forward, I can put more content that you find value and more informative. I think going forward, I really want to talk more about my experiences as a business, and I want to talk more about what I know and share a lot about the things that I've learned and I've experienced, and to help other freelancers and help other businesses. And I hope that I can continue to collaborate and bring on board other creatives and other business people as well, like really, really good entrepreneurs, to share their journeys and to help inspire you as well, so that we can all grow. It's been a learning experience, and I am just thankful for, I don't even know if this podcast will still go on for another couple of years. I don't know if it will, go and eventually die out, but right now I'm more focused on just the journey and the adventure, because I'm learning so much. And if that's one thing that I want to leave with everybody, it's just forget about the destination and just focus on the journey. And you never know where life will take you, because I never thought that I could have a podcast and I could be in this position. But me constantly trying to learn, to grow, and to improve myself has just led me down this path. So I am incredibly, incredibly grateful. And that's about it. That is the end of this episode. I would really love to say thank you once again to Smart Hills Corporate Solutions for being the official sponsor of the podcast for over a year now. And I want to say thank you to my cameraman for today. That is Ghost Ninja Photography. Make sure you reach out to him on all platforms on social media. And that's it. To all my fellow creatives and listeners, don't forget, please dream big, embrace what makes you different and unique, and remember, all things are possible to those who believe and are willing to put the hard work, who are willing to do the hard work to make that a reality. This has been another episode of the Shawk23 Podcast. I'm Shawk23. Hapadua.